Well, President Biden's administration in the US, like the UN and the EU, is desperate to push a radical sexuality and gender ideology on countries throughout the world. And unfortunately, New Zealand's representatives are part of that pressure group in the UN. But fortunately, many countries are standing up to the indoctrination and to the pressure. And one of them is Hungary. And there's actually a growing number of countries pushing back. For example, Sweden, Finland, and England have started the shift away from hormonal and surgical treatments for children suffering gender distress, and they're moving to more mainstream mental health strategies. But that doesn't stop liberal countries like the US and also the EU trying to get their way. And there was just an example last week in Hungary. Let's check it out. So, US Ambassador to Hungary, David Pressman, last week, he criticised Hungary's policy on LGBT issues and on Hungary's approach to protecting young people. Yep, he's a US representative as a guest in Hungary, and he's dissing on them. Yep, for speaking up against and protecting young people from extreme sexuality and radical gender ideology, especially being targeted at children in schools. But that deserves the wrath of this ambassador. Now, Pressman, who is married to a man, even managed to bring in a Nazi reference in his speech. He gave the speech at the Budapest Pride reception, and he said he'd recently visited the Hungarian capital's House of Terror Museum, which honours those persecuted during Nazi Germany's occupation of Hungary and the post-World War II communist governments that ruled the country until 1989. Apparently protecting kids from radical sexuality and gender ideology is comparable to Nazism. Why is Pressman so annoyed? Well, it's because Hungarian MPs in 2020 effectively banned same-sex couples from adopting children and defined marriage in the country's constitution as between a man and a woman. Hungary is not afraid to promote its family policy. Budapest's international airport that I went through last year is festooned with banners reading "Family-Friendly Hungary." So here's the Hungarian Foreign Minister, Peter Szijjártó, I think is how you say it. Have a listen to his comments.
Look, when we speak about family, we have a very clear understanding in Hungary what is family. For us, family is father, mother, and children, where father is definitely a man and mother is definitely a woman. When we speak about marriage, we speak about a union of two persons, one man and one woman. This is how we think in Hungary, and this is what is written in our constitution. We never interfere into private life of the people. We don't care who loves whom. It's up to you with whom you make love, with whom you live together, but do not make a propaganda out of it. So we don't like the gender propaganda at all. That's why there's a law in Hungary which says that the sexual education of the children is an exclusive right of the parents. So we do not allow these LGBT organizations to go to the schools and to the kindergartens and explain to our kids that although you look like a boy, you could be a girl. So we don't allow that. We don't allow transgender propaganda or homosexual propaganda to be broadcasted to children either, because we do believe that the persons who know the children's best are their parents.
Well, that sounds pretty fair, doesn't it? But as you can see, as you can imagine, within Europe, Hungary is under heavy fire, and especially after adopting a law in 2021 that stipulates that children at school are not confronted with homosexuality and gender ideology. And after that, the Dutch Prime Minister said that Hungary has no place in the European Union. Now, the Hungarian ambassador in the Netherlands, Andrei Kosis, reacted to this on the Christian television channel Family 7. He said that Europe was founded on Judeo-Christian values and traditions. He said, we have not changed, Europe has.
Netherlands and other countries have created rainbow societies,
yeah.
which we respect, of course. But our society is not a rainbow society. Our society is a binary society. So the mother is a woman, the father is a man.
Yeah.
And all we want is that other countries respect this choice,
Yeah.
because it has nothing to do with the EU values. It's a characteristic of the society to have a rainbow society.
I read somewhere in an interview with you that marriage is a holy thing between one man and one woman, you said.
Absolutely.
Is Europe drifting away from their Christian roots then, you think?
The mainstream, absolutely.
And what does it say?
Well, I mean, we are drifting away from the Judean-Christian heritage of the founding fathers, because we are convinced that the founding fathers wanted to keep the European traditions of Europe. We in Hungary, we would like to preserve those traditions, and we would like to keep Europe European, and when it comes to Hungary, Hungarian Hungary. We do not want to leave the EU, but we would like to see the EU to head towards a different goal.
Yep, well, that sounds pretty fair. So here's what the LGBT American ambassador said in his speech in Hungary, because he's annoyed that Hungary wants to protect children from transgender ideology, and he's annoyed that every country isn't bowing to the LGBT agenda.
Is that there are Hungarian kids today struggling with who they are and who they love. They yearn to be proud of themselves, proud of their country, and proud to build their future within it. And it is also a truth that they are often told through laws and statements of their political leaders and their media megaphones that they have something to hide, that they should not be proud of themselves, that their country is not proud of them, and that they have no future in Hungary.
Well, he concluded by saying that it is Hungarians who believe in these universal human rights that he's pushing, and it is Hungarians leading the fight for them. Someone needs to tell the American ambassador that 12 months ago, the Prime Minister recently won a fourth successive term as Hungary's Prime Minister. He actually increased his parliamentary majority and has 135 seats in the almost 200-member parliament. It's a two-thirds supermajority. And Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister, said, quote, "The entire world can see that our brand of Christian, democratic, conservative, patriotic politics is won. We are sending Europe a message that this is not the past, this is the future. This victory is one to remember, maybe even for the rest of our lives, because we had the biggest range of opponents to overpower. The left at home, the international left, the bureaucrats in Brussels, the money of the George Soros empire, and the international media," end quote. And it seems that Hungarians are very happy, and you can see why the Biden administration can't stand Hungary. But Hungary is very family-friendly in its policy making. For 50 years, the West, as we've talked about previously, have experienced below replacement fertility, including New Zealand. In fact, Hungary had the world's lowest fertility rate. They got down to 1.29 just before the turn of the century. It's gone up now to 1.53, and it needs to be 2.1 to replace your population. And so Hungary made its focus to be on the support and strengthening of family. And so a couple of years ago, all that friendliness was bundled into the Family Protection Action Plan, which was a hefty pack of incentives for folks to have more children. And what did that include? Well, there was a lifetime income tax exemption for women with 4 or more children. Nice. 3-year paid maternity leave, a $35,000 interest-free loan for women under 40 getting married for the first time. And if you eventually have 3 kids, the loan is forgiven. Generous home mortgage subsidies for families with 2 or more children. So that would be great for helping Kiwi families into their own home. And families with 3 or more children are eligible for a government grant of $9,000 towards the purchase of a people mover, a 7-seat car. Childcare payments to grandparents caring for grandchildren, and even family leave for working grandparents to help with newborn grandchildren. And no income tax for those under 25 so that they can start saving as soon as they start earning. And 5% of Hungary's GDP is spent on these policies, which is a significant investment into families. But here's the neat bit. Incentives take effect when expectant mothers reach the second trimester of pregnancy. Yes, that unborn child is a child. According to Katalin Novak, who was the previous Minister of State for Family and Youth Affairs and is now the President of Hungary, she said, "This is a philosophical aspect for us. We believe life begins at conception. We value unborn child, not only born children." Wow, how radical. And the result, in the last decade, there's been a 24% increase in births, a 40% decline in abortions, 40% more marriages, which of course will really upset the Biden administration and EU, and 29% fewer divorces. Now, they still have a way to go, but according to Ms. Novak, what we do in Hungary is decreasing or eliminating the disadvantage of those having children. All over the developed world, those who are having children are in a less beneficial situation than those who aren't. We want to eliminate these disadvantages. You remember the recent furor over National Leader Christopher Luxon's comments on fertility rates and that we needed to have more children? Well, perhaps I'll take Chris to Hungary next time I visit. Look, now as is now obvious, Hungary's focus on traditional marriage, on recognising the unborn child, and on protecting young people and children from radical sexual indoctrination, it doesn't sit at all well with the radical forces and secularists in the European Union or in President Biden's administration. But the Hungarian people don't care. As I said, they recently voted the government back into power at the beginning of the year last year for another 4 years with a stronger majority. Perhaps we should organise the National and Labour Party conferences to be held in Budapest next year. They could learn a bit about good policy making. We should keep an eye on Hungary. They seem to be setting an example for the rest of the world in terms of family policy. They should probably continue to ignore their American ambassador as well. The US is certainly no role model for family life and cultural cohesion at the moment.